So it's time to get into the CVRAM files. Now, what are CVRAM files? CVRAM stands for compressed VRAM, and obviously there aren't any real CVRAM files in the file structure of the game. When you look into the Tomba 2 CD, you only find a couple of files, and the most important ones are the DAT, the IDX, and the IMG. Now, the IDX explicitly tells how to split the IMG file into the CVRAM files, but we won't be getting into that right now. We're only gonna look at the ready-made CVRAM files that have been extracted from the IMG already. And I've taken the smallest CVRAM file, which is this one, 46800-5800.CVRAM. It's the smallest CVRAM and it's the easiest to grasp, but let's go over the file format structure real quick. So as you can see, there's a couple of bytes here, and then there's a lot of nothing. By the way, my hex editor shows zeros as empty spaces, so don't be scared about that. But anyway, there seems to be some bytes here, then a whole lot of nothing, and at address 800 the data seems to begin, so to speak. Now, what does this all mean? The header is the most important part of the CVRAM because it tells you how to essentially create the frame buffer, the entire VRAM that will be drawn when the level is loaded. Here are the instructions on how. So, the first thing you want to look at is the first 4 bytes. This tells how many entries are there in this CVRAM file. So that's 4. It's a little endian 4-bit word, or whatever it's called, long, or yeah, I think it's long, little endian long. And then there's 4 entries, headers. But I don't feel comfortable looking at them here, so I'll just copy them into the text editor. Header. So the first 4 bytes are amounts of headers, and then it's 12 bytes per entry. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this is entry number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. So what do these numbers mean? I'll just swap the bytes so you can get a better understanding of the true value. So first off, there's 2 bytes for X, 2 bytes for Y, 2 bytes for width, 2 bytes for height, and 4 bytes for compressed size. So that would make something like this. X, Y, width, height, and compressed size. Makes sense. So CVRAM file extractor would work like so. It first reads the amount of headers, it's 4, and then reads 4 12-byte entries as X, Y, width, height, compressed size. And yeah, if we go back to the hex editor, we see that we can't just straight away start reading from here. That's because the first 800 bytes are reserved for the CVRAM header. Because imagine, if this was, say, 5, then there would be another additional 12 bytes used by the header listing. And if it was, I don't know, 15, then it would take even more space. There's no hard limit on how many different graphics there can be. Sure enough, you could put like some absurdly large value here, but you couldn't ever fit all the subheaders into the small space of 800 bytes. Actually, we can probably count how many we can fit, because 7FC divided by C is AA. So at most you can have 170 unique headers here. But anyway, once you've read the headers and written them down, you skip to the address 800, and yeah, that's pretty much it. You're now at the start of the first entry. So read an instruction, act accordingly, and write your decompressed graphic file into the VRAM at this X, at this Y, with the width of this and with the height of that. Or just, well, save them as individual files. That's what I've done. And how do you know when to stop? Well, the compressed size was 5800, so in this case you would read from this file you would read I'm not sure if you can read this, but on the bottom of the hex editor it shows that I have selected 5800 bytes. So that's how much this compressed data takes space in this CVRAM. But there's a lot of zero padding. Why? Because you must always start at an address that's divisible by 800. As you can see, the second entry has a compressed size of 800 bytes, but if you look closely, it starts here. It only takes 2C5 bytes, and the rest is just padding. But you gotta have that because you can only start at fixed intervals of 800 bytes. So even if your compressed size was 2 bytes, you would still need to have 700 and FD bytes of zero padding. But anyway, this is the second entry. This is the third entry, and so on. The fourth entry starts here and is 800 bytes, but most of it is padding, as you can see. So that's pretty much it. Read the header, go to the address 800 and start acting accordingly. You know where to draw it and how big the graphic window is, and you know the compressed size. And this 40 here is the width byte that we talked about earlier in the compression thing. So in this case you start decompressing, and once you arrive to instruction that has a how value of 1 or bigger, no actually, yeah, you need to have a how value of 2 or bigger, so you would jump back the magic amount of bytes. The magic is gotten from this particular width word. So in this case it would be 80, because 40 times 2 is 80, so our magic value would be 80 in this case. Now I've already made a small Python script that does all this. It exports not only the individual files, I'm gonna show this in a hex editor. This 0.bin file is pretty much this, just decompressed. But from this decompressed file alone you can't figure out the width value, because this is just raw data. If you open this in a graphics viewer, you have to manually adjust the width of the window so you know how wide the image actually is. That information is lost here. It's only stored in the CVRAM header. But thankfully my tool also makes this manifest.json file. So that's better. This should be easier to understand. This is all decimal values, but you get the point. It's just a dictionary with sorry, that's my dog. But yeah, you probably get this already. It's just a dictionary that contains the x, the y, the width, the height, and the compressed size. You absolutely need this file if you want to recompress anything, because this contains the critical values of x and y and width and height and the compressed size. Every time you recompress anything, you first of all need the width, but also you need to update the compressed size bytes, because of course the value could differ from the original. X and y and width and height are probably the same. If you're gonna do some graphic edits, you're not gonna modify those, but this will inevitably change, and this will need to be read if you want to actually compress anything. My tool also makes small preview images. You can't know the palette or CLUT beforehand, so I'm just using a black and white grayscale palette. So these are the graphic files that CVRAM entries represent. But that's pretty much it. I don't know how an ideal recompressor would work. Would it specifically ask for a folder with sequentially named bin files that also need a manifest file exactly in this format or something? I don't know, but I'm sure we can work something out. Please check the description for the Python script, and also well, the CVRAM files. I'm sure you can ask about them in the Tomba Club Discord, but they're somewhere in the drive, I'm sure. I can probably attach a few of those too. Yeah, I'll just zip this too and set it in, so just so you get the idea. Any questions? Just ask.